So as you can see that I am definitely nicked up today as the Knicks look to go to 500 on the season as they are 16 and 17 and sitting comfortably. Well, no, I wouldn't say comfortably because there's a lot of good teams. I wouldn't say good teams, but there's a lot of teams that's in that area that are vying for some playoff spots. We'll get into some NBA here in a little bit, but welcome to the Mack and Black podcast. I obviously am the black portion of the show, Oso Negro himself, and thank you guys for watching. Hey, so you know, I was thinking to myself yesterday because I'm not sure, like, if you guys have been like watching the news per se, with all these gender reveals that are going on. And I got to thinking, like, I know everyone's thinking, like, Nate, why would you bring up gender reveals on a sports show? Because I blame all these goofy ass gender reveal parties to no one other than LeBron James. Now, follow me on this. This is me being stupid before I have to get serious for the next 2 hours. Think about it. LeBron James is the only one that kicked off this whole let me make a 3-hour spectacle over a 15-second announcement that you could have made on Twitter, on Facebook. You could have told Rick Bucher. You could have told Adrian Wojnarowski. You could have told anybody this. But no, you had to do this whole song and dance to let everybody know that within 15 seconds you were joining the Miami Heat. That's all a gender reveal party is. These couples spend hundreds of dollars for you to tell me you're having a boy. You can tell me on Twitter you're having a boy. Which, oh, by the way, my Twitter account, by the way, is Gran Oso Negro 14. Make sure you follow me on that. As a matter of fact, I will jump the gun here and I will make a show page for us. I'll make a Mac and Black Twitter page because I'm having a lot of fun on Twitter, a little bit more than I am per se on Facebook for obvious reasons. But yeah, Gran Oso Negro 14 on Twitter. If you haven't followed me, go ahead and follow me on there. Also, while I'm at it, you can also check us out on YouTube. So if you don't do the Facebook thing and you're listening to us, you can check us out on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com, and when you go in the search bar, look for PodRiver, and you'll see probably my ugly mug on there somewhere. And then you'll probably see Mac on there and Steve's on there, all kinds of content between us, shows Steve's does, and all kinds of stuff. So check us out on YouTube. We're also on Spotify. If you listen to podcasts on Spotify, you can find us on there. Just go to Spotify and look up Mac and Black Podcast. You can find us on there. And what else am I missing? Let me see. Oh, yeah, iTunes as well. Leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. All that great stuff. So I actually wanted to, believe it or not, kind of jump into, usually we save like the UFC for last, but I actually want to talk between that and the WWE because, the Elimination Chamber actually was on Sunday, and we saw who did we see? We saw The Miz cash in his money in the bank after Lashley took out Drew McIntyre, and this happened after Drew McIntyre had just won the Elimination Chamber. So it goes, Drew McIntyre wins the Elimination Chamber, Bobby Lashley attacks Drew, The Miz comes in, uh hits him with the skull crushing finale, WWE champ, which then leads us into Monday, in where Bobby Lashley was promised from the Miz that if he helped him out, he'd get a title shot. And now the Miz has a title shot coming up, or I'm sorry, Bobby Lashley has a title shot coming up on Monday. Here's my thing, dude. Like, a lot of people are hating on the Miz being WWE champ, and I don't understand what the hate is. I think the Miz, to be honest with you, might be the best heel in wrestling right now. The Miz cuts killer promos. I mean, obviously, we know that he's a TV show star. We know he started in you know what, when the Miz is funny to me because the Miz is the same guy that was on the Real World, loved wrestling, had the Wing Eagle belt. And those of you that are on my social media, you know that I have a Wing Eagle belt like the fake one. I have a real one and I have like the little fake one. And he had that. He was acting funny. And the next thing you know, he's in the Tough Enough series trying to win a contract. And when The Miz won the title the first time the same exact way by beating Randy Orton when he cashed in his Money in the Bank, my thing was this. I was thinking like, yo, The Miz is doing exactly what he's supposed to be doing. The Miz is a heel. He won the title. Nobody cheered for him. Everybody was pissed. That's what heels are supposed to do. If you look at wrestling nowadays, a lot of these guys can't cut promos. Like, that's why Bobby Lashley, more or less, has had a mouthpiece between MVP and Leo Rush because he can't cut promos. At the end of the day, he can't cut them. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, my thing basically is this, man. I like the fact that the Miz is champ. And I feel so bad for Drew McIntyre because with Drew, like, Drew deserved the title, but the problem is it came at the worst time. So COVID hits, and then they take the fans out of the arena. And at this time, you didn't think of the idea of the Thunderdome yet. Then WrestleMania hits, and it's just not the same. Like WrestleMania this year, maybe outside of the whole match between the Undertaker and AJ and the way that they kind of sold that match into like the movie style type of match, like, those first couple of months watching wrestling sucked. Like, you're cutting promos to no one in the arena. So that's why I think the Thunderdome is actually something refreshing until we can get the fans back. But I think Drew McIntyre's WWE Championship run came at the worst time. And that's the same thing. And I've been meaning to talk about this for a minute because if you look on SmackDown, you got Roman Reigns basically being Roman Reigns, where people wanted Roman Reigns to be a long time ago. I feel the WWE has derailed Roman Reigns to an extent to where it's always too late. Like, follow me on this. Remember the Royal Rumble that Batista won? Roman Reigns should have won that Royal Rumble. He was super over at the time. The crowd was definitely on his back. We knew Batista was coming back, so it wasn't a secret to anybody. And somebody in the back should have told the referee to tell Batista to not win the Royal Rumble, and we'll figure a way out. But that's not what they did. You have Roman Reigns put on this amazing show at the Royal Rumble for him to lose to Batista in probably one of the worst ways that you could have ended a Royal Rumble, period. You know what I'm saying? So now here comes the next year, and you let Roman Reigns win the Royal Rumble next year, but at that point, the fans don't care. You should have had him win it the year prior. But no, because Batista's coming back and you got to treat Batista as this WWE royalty, he has to win the championship. I thought it was a terrible move. And that's where I'm at with Roman Reigns, because think of how long Roman Reigns is being booed until now you make him into a heel. And I think his heel run is actually pretty decent. As a matter of fact, I would even say that I don't think Roman Reigns needs Paul Heyman in his corner. I really don't. I think Paul Heyman is just at this point there just because he's getting paid. Roman Reigns doesn't need Paul Heyman. I think Roman Reigns can't cut killer promos like the Miz, but they're decent. They're okay. They're all right, you know? So, and then if you've been watching NXT, and I got to get caught up, but I kind of got a gist of everything that's going on. Adam Cole, I guess now is on his own, which I'm cool with. I think Adam Cole's the best thing going in NXT. I know they took the title off him, and he's been kind of doing other roles and whatnot, but I hope they bring him back in the championship picture. I really do. I like what's his name? Adam Cole. As a matter of fact, I'll even go out on a limb. I think maybe not this year's WrestleMania, but I think next year somewhere you'll see Adam Cole jump. I think you're going to see a guy like Karrion. I think Karrion Kross. let him hone his craft in NXT, but I think once he climbs back up, I think he's gonna be really good. I think once Vince McMahon gets him to where because Karrion Kross, first of all, we all know that Vince loves big guy. He loves big guys, he loves tall guys. So if a guy like Lashley's on a title run, and if a guy like Drew McIntyre had his title run, there's no way Karrion Kross is not getting some type of championship looks once he gets out of NXT. I mean, yeah, he was the NXT champ, but remember, he wrestled Keith Lee, who I'm not a fan of whatsoever, and he separated his shoulder on the move. I had to relinquish the title. So now you got to rebuild the Karrion Kross brand back up. So I think next WrestleMania, you'll see Karrion Kross. I think you'll see Adam Cole. I think you'll see maybe a few of other these NXT guys, but NXT's pulled up a decent show. So can't front on that. I actually want to get that out of the way because I've been wanting to talk wrestling for like the last few weeks, but I haven't been able to do it. So plus also, we had a UFC fight night the other night, and I was able to catch like more than half of it, at least the main card. I thought the women's fight was really good. I'm blanking at the top of her name. Let me pull her name up. The girl who did win. I thought, Michael Bisping was bringing up a good point. Vera was just trying to jump on her back and just do things, and she would get the other girl on her back and stuff, but man, she wasn't doing anything. Like at that point, the other girl, um she gets on her back, but now she's fighting to get out, and Vera's on top, not doing anything. And I thought that Michael Bisping did a really good job of explaining, like, hey, if you're gonna put her on the ground, you got to do something other than just hold her there and try and hold position, because if she gets out, the referees are going to give her the point because you didn't do anything. That's exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened, and that's why she won. And then that actually leads me into, excuse me, what ultimately was the the main event of that bout, which was is that tonight? It is tonight. So we do have a fight night today. We have a Rosenstreich taking on Gane, a heavyweight division. And the reason why I bring that up is because now you had Curtis Blaydes, who was technically the number 2 ranked heavyweight in the world, taking on Derek Lewis, who's the 3rd ranked heavyweight in the world. And yeah, Derek Lewis knocked out Curtis Blaydes in the 2nd round. Knocked his ass clean out. And the funny thing, and like the crazy thing about the fight was, you almost kind of saw it coming, right? If you look at that fight again, if you want to go back and take a look at the fight, and trust me, you're not going to miss anything if you take the necessary 15 minutes to look at it again, because it's only into the 2nd round. But I feel like Derek Lewis was setting up Curtis Blaydes to get him a counter punch. Because if you look at that fight, in those first about 2 or 3 minutes or so, they were really feeling each other out. Like Blaydes wasn't really getting too aggressive, and they were feeling each other out. And that both guys got amazing power, so you don't want to get knocked down or anything. So they're being like real careful with one another. And then Blaydes got a little aggressive there towards the end and got a couple of good hits on Derek Lewis, stunned him a little bit. I know Lewis, I think, fell, but he tripped on his own. And you could tell, like, towards that last minute of the fight, or of that first round, that Derek Lewis may have wanted to step back and be like, okay, he's got some good power. I don't want to walk into no strikes, so let me take my time on this one. And then look at the 2nd round. Once again, Curtis Blaydes is the aggressor. He goes in for the takedown. Lewis hits him with a left uppercut, hits him square in the jaw, knocked him out. And the reason why I wanted to bring this part up was because if you looked at the post-game interview but the post-fight interview with Derek Lewis, Michael Bisping, once again, the question of should Derek Lewis be in line for a championship spot coming up here soon. And Derek Lewis, in the most humble but trying to talk smack way he could, he said, and I quote, "Well, I know that John is in front, so I don't know." And if and he's absolutely right with the way he talks about that. I am a firm believer on this show that the only reason why John Bones Jones is even being considered for a heavyweight championship spot is for ratings. But beyond that, the fact that John Bones Jones just jumps up a weight class and now all of a sudden he's now the number one contender to Francis versus Stipe is a total joke. Why does John Bones Jones not fight Rosenstruik? Why does John Bones Jones not fight Derek Lewis? How come Bones Jones hasn't even fought? Like, you don't even have, if you don't want to fight some of the top tier because you're scared of them, that's fine. Fight a lower tier guy. Like, whatever happened to Brock versus Bones Jones? I thought that fight was supposed to happen. But I guess not, because maybe I think Brock Lesnar is just happy being at home. He's happy being a dad. His kids are growing up. He's got, he's got his wife Sable. I think he's fine just being at the crib at this point. But I think something like that should happen. I think of Bones Jones versus Derek Lewis. Bones Jones versus Derek Lewis at UFC. I guess you can't do it at UFC, whatever it is, 260, whatever was it, 259, or the one that's on the 27th of March. You can't do it then. Why? Because I'm pretty sure Derek Lewis would not have been cleared to fight. But at the same time, dude, you're gonna tell me that what August you can't give me Bones versus Derek Lewis? Why? Because Dana White in his heart of hearts knows that John Bones Jones is chewing off more than he can chew. So why mess with the rating scale if you know that all the Bone Jones nut huggers are going to pay top money to see him fight, and not and would rather him get knocked out by Francis than him getting knocked out by Derek Lewis. Because if he gets knocked out and beat by Derek Lewis, then what ends up happening is now what could have been, let's say Francis win. You could have got Francis versus Bones Jones, right? Dana White's looking at dollar signs. I got the best heavyweight in the world. I got the got what many people consider the GOAT, and John Bones Jones going. And man, that is money, that's ratings, that's revenue, that's this and that. Francis versus Derek Lewis, I would pay to watch that personally. It may not have the same, oomph as maybe Bones versus Francis. But if you really watch the UFC, you would know that Derek Lewis is no slouch. But the fact Derek Lewis is getting little to no love, you could tell he was frustrated, but he was just kind of playing the look, it's nothing I can do role. But I think it's a total, absolute, utter joke that Derek Lewis has to now damn near wait again now to get a UFC title spot. At least he was honest when they asked him the first time when he beat the one Russian dude, and he told him that Trump told him he had to knock his ass out. He's far away from that. When they asked him if he was a title fight, he said, "Nah, man, I'm not even close to being ready. I got to work on my cardio," and he had to work on his ground game. He was honest about that. Excuse me. He was honest about it. But now he deserves it. Without question, he deserves a title shot. So, yeah, Rosenstruik versus Gain is tonight. Rosenstruik is 11-1-0 with obviously his only loss, excuse me, being to Francis Ngannou. And then you got Gain who's coming in and he's 7-0. Also next week we got Jan Blachowicz against Israel Adesanya, the last airbender, who is the current reigning and defending UFC middleweight champ. He's jumping up to 205. That should be a good one. Excuse me. I'm also looking at I'm looking at um oh, help me out here. Zhang versus Naman Junis. That's gonna be a good one. Remember Zhang, the last time we saw her, she beat Joanna Jędrzejczyk and did a great job. That was a great fight. You got to give all the props in the world to Joanna in that fight. I mean, she was getting her head beat in by Zhang, but she was holding her own, and it went 5 rounds, and really it could have went either way, but Zhang kind of did outclass her per se. But Zhang's gonna face Rose Namajunas at UFC 261 for the strawweight title. So looking forward to that one. Um, Oliveira was supposed to take on. I got his name right here. Gotta love ESPN sometimes. Here we go. Was supposed to take on Kurma Gamadov, but he is sick. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he came in way overweight at the weigh-in. So that fight is off. Um, we got this card coming up here soon. I guess Jake Paul is going to be going against Ben Askren, and then now they have Antonio Tarver to take on Frank Mir in a boxing match in the same card. I don't know how I feel about that. Frank Mir is good and all, but Frank Mir is better at, he's always been better at jiu-jitsu. I don't really look at him as a boxing guy. And you're taking on Antonio Tarver, who, oh, by the way, is a former boxing champion in his own right. So I don't know if that was a smart move by Frank Mir. Like, he's like, I've always wanted to be in the boxing ring and this and that. And maybe he'll prove me wrong. But seeing Frank Mir's last few fights, if you're a better boxer than he is or has more power than he does, it's gonna be a wrap for Frank Mir. But it's gonna be an interesting card. And then, I'm not saying that I don't have any respect for Jake Paul, but I'm hoping that Ben Askren knocks his ass out. But then again, the last time we saw Ben Askren, he got knocked out by a flying knee by Jorge Masvidal. So we'll see what goes on. We'll see what goes on with that. I actually wanted to get into the NFL real quick because before I do anything, because I thought there were some interesting stories that came out um over the last few days. If you were on Twitter, you would have seen the story that broke out where Deshaun Watson met up with David Culley, who is the new head coach of the um of the Houston Texans, and pretty much reiterated that he's willing to sit out games and not play for the Houston Texans this year if they don't trade him. The Houston Texans have pretty much have had their stance in where they're pretty much saying that um we're not going to trade Deshaun Watson unless you give us the 2 number 2s, 2 number 1s, and 2 defensive studs. It's like the reason why I blank there is because I guess I kind of understand both sides, and the question becomes like, whose side am I necessarily on per se? And I think for me, Deshaun Watson has put himself in a position in where he really can't go back to Houston. Like, this isn't a situation of shut up and play. This isn't a situation of honor your contract. This is a situation now of where Deshaun Watson has officially made up his mind where he does not want to be with this Houston Texan organization any longer. I feel like when the biggest mistake that Houston could have done was when they put Bill O'Brien in charge. I think the worst thing they could have done was putting him in charge and trading DeAndre Hopkins. This team isn't the same. They're older now. And then you traded your first round draft pick for Laramie Tunsil. Like, Laramie Tunsil is a good offensive tackle, but why would you give up a first round draft pick for him? And so now the Houston Texans are kind of like so backed up to where Deshaun Watson's like, dude, I don't want to waste my youth. Deshaun Watson wants out of Houston so bad that he said he would play for the New York Jets. Like, think about that for a second. Of all the teams that you could have played for, you could play. He said, I mean, Miami. I think Miami's on the come up, but like the New York Jets, I feel like maybe a year, maybe 2 years away from being at least 500 and relevant, you know? And so I think with Deshaun, he's probably like, yeah, I secured the bag, but this is not where I want to be. And then you get the incompetence of Houston. And I don't know if you guys heard this story, but allegedly teams have been calling the Houston Texans about Deshaun Watson, leaving voicemails on the Houston Texans inbox, and they have not responded. And my biggest problem right now with the Houston Texans simply is this. Dude, what plan do you have? Like, what plan do you have? Okay, your your franchise quarterback is so upset with you that he's willing to damn near sit out the entire season. Well, he said he'll sit out the first few games of the season, but he'll sit out the entire season without you being there. You have teams that are coming up and saying, hey, I'm going to put a nice little package for you. Maybe we could work something out. And the best way to insult him, is by not answering back the phone. Dude, if the New York Jets are coming to you and saying, hey, we'll give you the number 2 pick and a couple of extra picks to give us Deshaun Watson, what are you tweaking about? That salary's off the books. You get a few first-round draft picks, and you're actually okay. It's like the Houston Texans are like a broken leg that are going to take 6 months in order to heal. Bill O'Brien broke the leg. Firing him was the surgery. Now you have the ability to go out there and fix this whole problem. And you have burnt the bridge with Deshaun Watson so bad that literally, if the New York Jets literally came to you and said, I will give you the number 2 pick, maybe one of my defensive studs, and maybe a second-round pick, if you're the Houston Texans, you need to take that deal because you don't have a first-round pick to where you have the luxury of maybe drafting yourself another guy who can take the place. Are you really going to go into the season with whoever the backup is for the Houston Texans? No, you're not. So if the New York Jets come in and say, hey, look, I'll give you the number 2 pick or whatever, you can't use that number 2 pick on potentially Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence. I don't know, dude. Like, Houston is a mess, bro. Like, think about it. Both Houston teams have had their star players where they don't want to be here anymore. James Harden didn't want to be with the Rockets. Russell Westbrook couldn't wait to get out of Houston. And now you got Deshaun Watson that can't wait to get out of Houston. Are you kidding me? And now just to make things even much more complicated per se, Russell Wilson comes out after he voiced his opinion last week about how much he was getting upset with the direction that the Seahawks was going, but he was a lot slick about it. He was slicker about it. He comes out and says, look, I'm cool with Seattle, but I got a list of teams if you talking about trying to trade me, though. And the 4 teams that he said was Dallas, New Orleans, the Bears, and I can't think for the life, and the Raiders. And a lot of people were like, well, why would Russell Wilson want to come to the Chicago Bears? Why would he want to play for the Chicago Bears? Like, what's this, blah, 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 this, that, and everything else. And when I was in the car thinking about, people asking why you want to go to the Chicago Bears, I'll be straight up with you. Why would Tom Brady wanted to go to Tampa Bay? You feel what I'm saying? Like, it would have been easy for Tom Brady to go to a more winning franchise that may have had better pieces. Okay. Like Tom Brady could have gone to the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts have one of the most wonderful offensive lines in the game. They have one of the better receiving cores coming up in the game. They have a really nice running game. We know their defense is pretty amazing. So, and they needed a quarterback at the time. Tom Brady could have gone to the Colts, but he didn't. He went to Tampa Bay. See, I think Russell Wilson, why he would say the Chicago Bears is because of Dallas, of New Orleans, of Chicago, and of the Raiders. The Bears have the best defense of the four teams I just made. Shout out to Heather, by the way. Heather, what's going on? Hey, speaking of which, I'm so glad that you're on because I want to go ahead and I'm gonna make the announcement, the judgment call on this. But I want to get Heather on coming up here soon to talk hockey. You know, she brought up a flashback that we were supposed to actually do a sports show, a hockey show, when back in the day, for Bolingbrook, but I never got around to it because my schedule sucked. But I definitely want to get her on to talk some hockey coming up here soon. As I mentioned earlier, I got AT&T TV and I got all the Chicago channels, and I've been watching a lot of Hawks, and I've been watching some Bulls, and trying to keep, now that the football season's over, getting back to the flow of the other sports. And I've seen some amazing stuff. But Heather says I don't want Russell Wilson at that package deal that is rumored. Losing Akeem Hicks, the heart and soul of this defense, would not make it worth it. I agree with you on that. Akeem Hicks, clearly, when he went down a couple years back, that the line play kind of deteriorated. Like Khalil Mack was a force. He just wasn't getting to the quarterback. He was in their head, but he wasn't touching them. You get Akeem Hicks back in that lineup, now he gets to make contact with the quarterback. So I agree with you on that. But my thing is, the Chicago Bears, of those teams, that's why he goes back to the Bears. Because with the Saints, the Saints have a good defense, but that defense can be torched. If you know what I'm saying, it can be torched. Like if you're gonna ask me, if you gave me the Chicago Bears that had a formidable offense with that defense against the New Orleans Saints, who has a formidable offense with their defense, give me the Bears any day of the week. I would trust the Bears defense a lot more any day of the week than I would trust the New Orleans Saints defense. And I'm not saying that because I'm a Bucs fan and I can't stand the Saints. I'm just saying that because I feel there's more playmakers in Chicago than I do that there's down there in New Orleans. You put Russell Wilson in the Chicago Bears uniform, and you don't have to get Russ top tier wide receivers. You just got to get them guys who can catch the football if it comes their way. Like if he let's say Seattle calls his bluff and trades him to Chicago. Obviously, they don't have Tyler Lockett. Obviously, they don't have DK Metcalf. Okay. But if you bring in a Russ, can you bring back Allen Robinson? How much better does this team get? Yeah, they have some offensive line woes, but so they did in Seattle. But I think that's something that the Bears are more than competent enough to fix because the Seattle Seahawks haven't done it. The Raiders make sense, but the thing with the Las Vegas is, like, I sometimes the Raiders confuse me because Derek Carr, I think, is a good quarterback. I'm not saying he's a world burner, but for that team, I think Derek Carr does not get enough credit for how good he really is. Like, we're talking a few years back when I want to say, was it Jack Del Rio was the head coach of the then Oakland Raiders when they were in the playoffs, when Derek Carr was playing out of his mind, and then last year he got hurt. And then this year, he's actually played decent. Like there was times when Oakland or when Las Vegas had leads in games. It's just the problem was their defense kind of stinks. It can't hold water. But what confuses me is like, what more does Derek Carr have to do? You know, what more do you want this man to do? He comes out every week, plays his heart out, does the best he can. He has no defense. And then he said Dallas. The only way, if I'm Seattle, the only way I make that deal, well, obviously it's just going to be Russell Wilson for Dak Prescott straight up, unless Jerry Jones gets desperate and throws in a draft pick, like a first round draft pick. But I don't see that's actually not a bad deal either. See, I think Seattle is trying to get a draft pick back from Jamal Adams. That's what I think. I'm not saying they're having a remorse on Jamal Adams. I'm just saying that the problem with Seattle was when they didn't bring back Jadeveon Clowney, and I know this sounds crazy because Clowney didn't have a great season in Tennessee, but that's because he was in a defense in Tennessee. That doesn't make sense. The way Jadeveon plays, it would have made so much more sense in Seattle. But the problem was that he wanted like $20 million a year. You weren't getting that money. You had one good season. Like you spent, what was it, like 6-7 years down in Houston, more or less playing out of position because let me put it to you like this. Not only do I feel that, all right, here's why I'm gonna be a hypocrite on myself. And as a sports fans, we always are hypocrites. This is what I'll say. If Jadeveon Clowney was in a 3-4 system with defensive tackles that attack like Tampa has, he would have better numbers. But look at some of the situations he's been in. Like Houston, in Houston, they never really asked Davion to really play the role of a pass rusher. They wanted him to be like that cover linebacker, and every once in a while we'll send you on a blitz. That's not who Jadeveon Clowney is. Because think about it, when they had like Vance Wilfork and everything, dude, J.J. Watt was eating because you got to double team Vance Wilfork, and now you're going to have some 6'6", 290 monster and J.J. Watt coming off the edge over there. But if you put Jadeveon Clowney as a 3-4 linebacker with Vita Vea and Sue if he comes back, and Golston if he comes back, with the way that front seven was getting pressure on over the last, throughout the playoffs and whatnot, Jadeveon makes sense. But when he's a 4-3 down lineman like he was in Seattle, you saw the production we all thought he was. But he chased the money, went to Tennessee, and didn't have close to the numbers that people thought he was going to, because he's not that kind of 3-4 linebacker. Like, you have to have elite defensive tackles in front of him in order for him to be successful. And Tennessee, unfortunately, doesn't really have that. They have good defensive tackles, but they don't have those defensive tackles that, quote, needs the double team. Okay. But if I'm the Bears, though, and Russell Wilson, the guy everyone keeps calling a simp because he loves Sierra, I'll never understand that. This is one of the reasons why I hate this flipping generation, because treating your woman nice for whatever reason gets you buried. But that's another conversation for another day. However, if you can get Russell Wilson at a decent package that won't cripple the Bears in the near future, you gotta go for it. Because at the end of the day, dude, Detroit is still rebuilding. I think Minnesota is overrated crap. And before you know it, and people are not going to want to admit to this, but I think Green Bay is going to be starting to downfall here in a little bit. they're going to pass the baton. And if they don't pass the baton this year, after this season, there's a great chance it's going to happen after next season. I can see that happening. But I think of the four teams that Russell asked for, Dallas, Las Vegas, Chicago, and I just blanked on the last. Oh, and New Orleans. I think the fairest, the team that can give you the fair amount for Russell Wilson potentially is Dallas. I think the team that needs to go out there and take a shot in the dark and see what you can do is Chicago. Because if the Bears got Russell Wilson and you can just get, again, you don't have to get world burners, but get you guys that can catch the ball and make plays. Like, I'll give you a good name. He just got cut recently, but Adam Humphries, like, you can sleep on Adam Humphries all you want, but Adam Humphries in the slot, if you can get a quarterback that can get him the football, is a monster. If Adam Humphries can flourish under or with Jameis Winston as his quarterback, I think he'd be okay with Russell Wilson. You can get him at a decent price. You could put him in the slot. You can make him a number 2. But I think if you're the Bears, man, you got to go for broke on this one. You not go for broke, but you got to kick the tires. Like, you're turning the engine and it's not revving. I need you to go underneath the hood and make some adjustments to get this car going. Because I think if the Bears got Russell Wilson and you don't deplete the defense and your near future, I think the Bears would be in good position to at least win the North and contend for the playoffs. They made the playoffs last year at 8-8 with a quarterback carousel. Imagine how good this Bears team could be if you had just one. And I'm no fan. I'm not really that big of a fan of Russell Wilson, but clearly Russell Wilson is 88 steps notches better than the situation they do have. They're 88 notches better than Nick Foles' dumbass. And then I can tell you that he's at least 60 clicks better than Mitchell, because I think Mitchell Trubisky is a better quarterback than Nick Foles, and you can't tell me nothing. I've been saying since day one, when the Bears went out and got Nick Foles, and they was talking about, oh, the Foles era is here. It's here. I'm so sick of Mitchell. He sucks. He's this and that. Nick Foles isn't that great either. This is the same Nick Foles who went to Jacksonville for the money, got the starting job, got hurt, and then when he came back in the game against Tampa Bay, he was so bad that he didn't even finish the game. They brought Gardner Minshew back in. So if I had lost my starting job in a matter of 2 quarters to Gardner Minshew, I would retire. And that's why I'm saying I don't think Nick Foles is that great. He's not the answer. Nick Foles to be the answer to the Bears' problems at quarterback, it's like putting a Band-Aid and it's like getting your hand cut by a sword, and it's just a gash, like a long ass gash down your arm, and you're just putting a bunch of Band-Aids on it to make it stop bleeding. Nah, Pimpin', you need to go to the hospital on that one. And that's why I think the Bears need to go to the hospital and get Russell Wilson if he's willing to play for the Chicago Bears. And I think if you're Seattle at this point, do you ask yourself, hey, have we maxed out? Because think about it. What's Russell Wilson? Like 33, somewhere around there? It's close to that. He's not old. Like, Russell Wilson still has 6-7 good years left to go. So if you're the Bears, why not? What do you got to lose? I think sometimes as a football team, and not even so much as a football team, because as I want to talk about the NBA, I think of the same thing. There's all this honing in on people wanting to hoard all these first round draft picks. And then I look at a team like the Buffalo Bills, who, as a matter of fact, that's a great example. Look at the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills 2 years ago, Josh Allen was good, but he had absolutely nobody to throw the football to. They went out. Stephon Diggs is available. The Bills are like, we'll give you our first round draft pick, because I think the Bills drafted, I think they were like 22, 23, somewhere in there. I think Minnesota moved up to 18 to get Justin Jefferson. Either they did or they stayed there. It's one of the two. I can't remember. But the Bills are like, we need a wide receiver. The Minnesota Vikings said, we need a first round draft pick. The Buffalo Bills said, I will trade you the what if for somebody that's already established. Now, the trade worked for both guys because Minnesota got Justin Jefferson, who finished second in Rookie of the Year. Then you had Buffalo got Stephon Diggs, who had some of the best numbers as a wide receiver this year. So my thing is this, like, yeah, it's cool to have all these draft picks and whatnot, but if you're going to trade these what ifs for a bona fide star, go for it. And especially if you're Chicago, because what I'm saying is, okay, I know that we just spent, 2 first round draft picks and whatnot for Khalil Mack, but we needed to. Okay, so spend another first round draft pick for Russell Wilson. That's all I'm saying. I think the Bears need to kick the tires on this. Those 4 teams, if there's one team I would love to see Russell Wilson on, I think it would be the Bears. I don't want to see him in New Orleans. That'd piss me off. But that's not going to happen because I think in New Orleans, I think Drew Brees still hasn't really officially retired yet. And I think somewhere like, I think Jameis Winston is at a point right now where, like, how do I say this? Okay, here's a good one. Let's say if I was the Denver Broncos, okay, because I saw something the other day where there were a lot of Bronco fans that were actually convincing themselves that Drew Lock is the guy, because they did a side-by-side of Drew Lock in his first year and obviously Josh Allen in his rookie year. And their numbers are eerily the same. They had the same win-loss record, the same completion percentage. I think Drew Lock threw for a few more yards than Josh Allen. But could you imagine if you had a guy, and I always keep bringing up Jameis's name because the one thing that's impressive about Jameis, for all the hate and despair that Jameis gets, he gets unknown wide receivers paid. Either unknown wide receivers or forgotten wide receivers. Excuse me. Like, for instance, Brashard Perriman got paid by the New York Jets thanks to Jameis, with him being basically his favorite target, even when Mike Evans and Chris Godwin were both healthy, because Perriman had that speed in the hole or in the slot. Jameis loved him. That's why Adam Humphries was got so big, because even when Adam Humphries was there with, again, the aforementioned Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, Jameis loved that slot guy. And I think Denver is a team that has a lot of really good pieces in place. I think they're one decent quarterback away from wanting to contend with the AFC West, because I know the Raiders at some point are going to get their defense fixed. The Chiefs speak for themselves. And I think we'll see what the Chargers look like with a new head coach, but they have their stud. And speaking of the Chargers, apparently Tyrod Taylor is now a free agent, and word on the street is that Ryan Fitzpatrick told the Miami Dolphins that he would not be coming back to the team, and now they're looking to Tyrod Taylor to be a backup for Tua. But pretty interesting stuff, NFL wise. We'll see how this quarterback carousel is going, because you got, Watson on the block. I think once we see whether it's Watson, if it's even Russell Wilson, Sam Darnold apparently still on the block, so we'll see what happens, because, I think the Jets are going to rue the day that they get rid of Sam Darnold. I think with that number 2 pick, either you trade down to maybe fill in some other holes and needs that you have, or I think you need to trade like the best stud you got. I mean, draft the best stud available. Sam Darnold, I think, is a good quarterback. Adam Gase is just not a good head coach. He's not. He's not a good head coach. And that's why the Jets were so bad. And that's why Sam Darnold was so bad. You put a Devontae Smith up there with Sam Darnold with a brand new team, with a brand new look and a fresh start. Why not, dude? I mean, Sam Darnold's, it's not even 24. And what, we're going to base how he plays off, because he played better under Todd Bowles than he did under Adam Gase. But am I going to give up on a Sam Darnold? I mean, if the Jets are really trying to trade him, shoot, I give it, and depending on what the price is, I would kick the tires if I'm Tampa to see if I can get a Sam Darnold to sit behind Tom Brady. Because there was a story that came out at like 2 days after the Super Bowl that the Bucs said that Blaine Gabbert will be the heir apparent to Tom Brady. I don't believe that crap for 5 seconds. That's BS. Blaine Gabbert is not that good. He's exactly what he's supposed to be. He's a backup quarterback, and if the Bucs are blowing anybody out, he's the guy that comes in and makes sure Tom Brady doesn't get hurt. Dude, Blaine Gabbert is not the guy you give the keys to an 18-wheeler and he doesn't have a CDL license. That's who Blaine Gabbert is. That's crazy. But if I'm the Bucs, I'd kick the tires on that. Let Sam sit behind a little bit, learn from Tom, give him the key. I'd rather give the keys to Sam Darnold than Blaine Gabbert. Please. Crazy, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. And then also, apparently, Josh Gordon is going to join Johnny Manziel in that fan control league. I'm just going to throw that in there because I don't feel like I don't want to miss out on it. Dude, the only reason why I'm acting like that is because, dude, I'm not watching no fan controlled football. It's basically what you call it. It's basically what's that indoor football, whatever it's called. That's all it is. It's all it really is. It's all it is. It's all it is. And I'm not. And here's how I put it: if I'm at home not doing anything, yeah, I'll watch it. But I'm not breaking any appointments to go watch the Fan Control Football League. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fan Control Football League. Hey, let's talk some NBA, man. NBA is getting interesting. Freaking Utah Jazz are 26-7. The Clippers are 3 games back. The Lakers are 3.5 back. Utah's killing it, but as I mentioned before, I'm not taking anything away from what Utah is doing as far as the regular season, but I want to see this Utah team playoff ready. And on top of that, I want to see this Utah team playoff ready because I know that the Lakers are going to be healthy, hopefully, as time goes on. I want to see the Clippers healthy as time goes on. The Phoenix Suns healthy. The Phoenix Suns are 21-11. They're 4.5 behind. They're a game behind the Lakers, a game and a half behind the Clippers for second place. I want to see these teams healthy. And then I want to see the Jazz go out and play them. And if the Jazz come out, let's say they make it to the finals. First off, and as much as a homer as I am and can be, Quinn Snyder, I think, is going to win Coach of the Year, even though I think that if the Knicks even sniff the playoffs, let alone make it, I think it should be Tibbs. But the job Quinn Snyder's doing in LA is amazing. In Utah is amazing. Absolutely amazing. I think Doc Rivers is going to get some love. And for what it's worth, Steve Nash got to get a little love too. Like, you can't ignore the fact that the Nets are 22-12. You can't. You just can't. And the thing about Philadelphia is I thought the way Philly brought in Doc when it seemed like that they were going to bring in Mike D'Antoni was kind of like Ken said, Ken saw. But at the end of the day, it was the right move because, I know that I've on this show said how much I think Doc Rivers is an overrated coach. Like, he's a guy that'll get you to the well. He'll get you to the well. He'll get you to the playoffs. Okay. But the only problem is, of all the years, like, how many times has he drawn water, AKA a championship ring, since he won the one in Boston? He hasn't. He keeps taking you to the well, but the well is always coming up dry. And I feel like Philadelphia is almost, to an extent, going to get like burned that way. But at the same time, and this is no disrespect to Brent Brown, but if I was Philadelphia, I probably would have parted ways with Brent Brown too, knowing that I have other coaches out here that might be able to kind of get me over the hump. Because remember, Philadelphia was on the trust the process thing for so many years, and now you got the studs to trust the, from the trust the process scenario and whatnot. But bro, what have you gotten at best? Like maybe an Eastern Conference final appearance at best. So I don't know, man. I think Doc's doing a great job in Philly, but Quinn Snyder definitely is doing a great job in Utah. But I want to see them. I want to see them playoff tested. The Bulls sit at 9. I mean, look at it. Look at this Eastern Conference. So Philly, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee all have 20 wins. But after that, the Raptors are 17-7. The Heat are 16-7. I'm sorry. The Raptors are 17-7. The Heat are 16-7. The Knicks are 16-7. The Pacers are 15-16. The Celtics are 16-7. So Raptors at 4 are 17-7. The Heat, Knicks, and Celtics are all tied for 5th place at 16-17. Then you got the Pacers, who are 15-16, with the Bulls right behind them at 15-17. And then you have the Hornets are 15-17. The Hawks are a game and a half back of the Bulls and are 2 games back of the Pacers. So even though the records aren't really making sense per se, like they're not great, you have a couple of teams that are under 500. Think about it like this: the Knicks play Indiana tonight. So not only if the Knicks could be Indiana tonight, and they will be Indiana tonight, could you think of the fact that the New York Knicks could be as high as 4th flipping place by the time tonight is over with? Dude, Tom Thibodeau, once again, I'm putting Tom Thibodeau in the same boat as I put Roman Reigns, where it is almost too late with what's going on. When Tom Thibodeau was fired from the Chicago Bulls, the job he wanted the worst was the Knicks. At that same time that happened, we got big, dumb, head-ass Phil Jackson, who came in and pretty much put the Knicks 5 years behind. You put the Knicks almost 5 years behind. You're trying to run the triangle. Then you bring in Jeff Hornacek, who swore up and down he knew how to run it. And then you didn't make it from Jeff Hornacek. So Phil gets fired. Then Jeff Hornacek gets fired. Then you bring in David Fizdale. That doesn't work out. Then David Fizdale gets KP traded, which, oh, by the way, buyer's remorse in Dallas. And I just read something on Twitter today where a lot of the reasons why people have been distancing themselves from KP is because his brother is his agent, and the way that everyone's been talking, his brother is hard to deal with. His brother is hard to deal with because there's been, like, I heard, like, and I don't buy nothing into it, but I heard like some crazy rumor in where supposedly the Golden State Warriors were talking, like trying to engage, like maybe they would trade like maybe a James Wiseman for a KP, but I don't see that. I don't see it. I don't see them getting away from what's his name. Dead headpiece. Leave my head alone. Said, what's going on, bro? But yeah, nah, dude. What was I talking about? Oh, KP, yeah. So supposedly Dallas has been going around trying to see the trade interest. This is after you just gave him the max. You just gave KP the max, and 1 year after giving him the max, you can't wait to trade him. Because here's the dilemma. The Knicks own Dallas's first round draft pick. Dallas right now is 9th in the West at 15 and 16. I need Dallas to go on some monumental 10-game losing streak and get them down towards, let's see, who's the worst team in the West right now? I got it right here. The worst team in the West right now is Minnesota. So maybe not that terrible, but the the Sacramento Kings are now 13 and 20, somewhere in that area. What's going on, champ? That's right. That's right. But I don't know, man. The Dallas situation is crazy because the question I now have to ask is, because I was thinking about this earlier today. Could you imagine, like, the Heat? I was watching the Miami Heat the other day, and first of all, I have the utmost respect for Eric Spoelstra, because here's a guy who got no credit whatsoever as head coach of the Heat when LeBron James was around. Everyone's like, oh, well, LeBron James runs that team, and Eric Spoelstra's just there because Pat Riley doesn't want to coach, blah, blah, blah. And all Eric Spoelstra pretty much done was stay the course, and last year got the Heat to the finals. This year, I think the reason why the Heat has kind of gotten off a little slow was because I feel like they're tired. That's just like we're watching the Lakers right now, and the Lakers kind of snapped their little losing streak that they had. But I think the problem that I have that with LA, not only do I think that AD missing is very important, but I think at some point, man, the Lakers are tired. I think that's why LeBron James was like, dude, why are we doing this whole All-Star game? I thought that was out of the brochure. And not only are they fighting and fussing to get this All-Star game going, but dude, now you're at a point to where the skills challenge, the dunk challenge, the three-point challenge, and the All-Star game are all happening in the same day. That's way too much basketball in one day. I need that 2-day separation. Can't do it, apparently. Can't do it for whatever reason. But I was asking myself about the Heat. I was like, could you imagine if the Heat would have really traded for James Harden? How good that team would have been. Now, I know that the asking price from Houston may have been a little high. They wanted Tyler Hero. We don't want to trade Tyler Hero. Then they wanted Duncan Robinson. Well, we don't want to trade Duncan Robinson. Like, okay, well, then who are you going to trade, dude? Who are we going to trade? Unfortunately, you went to Brooklyn. But they're starting, Jimmy's starting to get his feet now, and Tyler's starting to get his feet now, and Bam is playing better, and he's getting back on the court and stuff like that. So Heat is on fire right now. Because I'm right now looking at some of these teams because, with all the records kind of being the same, the question is going to be who's going to be buyers and who's going to be sellers at the trade deadline. And when you look at some of these records, like, maybe if I'm looking at 11 through 15 right now in the NBA, you got New Orleans at 11, Oklahoma City, Sacramento, Houston, and Minnesota. So if you're asking the question of those 5 teams who could be sellers, like who exactly could you get, from that team? Like if I'm looking at the teams in the East, from 11 down, you got the Hawks. I won't necessarily count the Hawks because they're still in playoff contention, but maybe Washington, the Orlando Magic, they lost Markelle Fultz and they haven't been that good this year. Cleveland's trying to trade Andre, but the thing with Andre Drummond is, like, someone was asking me, Nick, would you take Andre Drummond to the Knicks? Because Andre Drummond said he would be welcome to come to New York. But the only problem that I have is is that the Knicks don't need an Andre Drummond. He would be a nice addition to the New York Knicks. I would love to have him, and it's no disrespect to Mitchell Robinson, but I would love to have Andre starting. Do you know how much strength would be in that front court if you had Andre and Julius Randle? That's a lot of strength. That's a lot of meat in the front court of the Knicks. But if you have that, and then, you bring Mitchell off with that second unit, because by the way, Elfrid Payton got hurt, so the New York Knicks had to start Derrick Rose, and IQ came off the bench. I want to see how that works tonight against Indianapolis, because with Sacramento, they're really not that good defensively, and they were coming off a losing streak. But I want to see, I think defensively, Indiana's a little bit better. I want to see what the Knicks do with that, because if Derrick Rose continues to cook as a starting point guard and IQ can come off the bench and run with the rest of those guys, because think about it, the bench mob for the Knicks is IQ, Alec Burks, Nerlens Noel, Obi, and who I'm missing, whoever it is at the three. I'm blanking. It's gonna drive me flipping nuts. Because it's not Rivers, he's hurt. But you get my drift. Right? If the Knicks are going to make a trade for anybody, their biggest glaring need is they need another shooter. And they not just any shooter. I need a let me take the game over shooter. And that's why I'm hoping to see. And this report actually came out not only on Twitter, but it also came out on The Score, in where the Knicks have sent a few scouts to kind of gauge on Bradley Beal. I think Bradley Beal to the Knicks makes so much sense. And the reason why I bring this up is because a buddy of mine, his name is Will Rivera, asked me about a couple months ago if I would trade our first round draft pick and Dallas's first round draft pick for James Harden. And at the time, I said no, because I was thinking that if you bring in James Harden, it would somewhat stunt the growth of RJ Barrett, and I want to see how the kids play. But now that we are 33 games into the season, I can confidently say that if he was to ask me that same question now and James Harden get traded from the Rockets, I would make that deal, because the Knicks need a shooter. I'm not saying that if the Knicks go out and get a shooter that all of a sudden that they are going to be world champions. I think if the Knicks went out there and got them someone of the caliber of a Bradley Beal, who can shoot the lights out of the gym, would fit perfectly next to, it would be, think about this starting lineup: Rose, Beal, Barrett, Julius, and Mitchell Robinson. And then coming off the bench, I forget about Reggie Bullock, but I'm pretty sure that Bullock would probably go into the bench mob. And you're going to tell me, coming off the bench for the bench mob, you're going to have IQ, Alec Burks, Reggie, Obi, and Nerlens Noel. And then you got a few guys on the bench like a Frank Ntilikina, like a Taj Gibson, that would be sick. Now, I know I'm mentioning a few names because the Knicks would probably have to trade. And I think Elfrid Payton, if Derrick Rose goes off again tonight, I think Elfrid Payton is a guy who could be on the chop block. I think Frank's on the chop block. And I think Kevin Knox is on the chop block. So if you're the Knicks and you're trying to go for, and you're trying to now put yourself ahead, because again, think about it. There is absolutely no guarantee that the Dallas Mavericks won't make the playoffs. So let's say if Dallas sneaks in and they get that 7 spot, it's not a lottery pick. Now you have a mid pick. Let's say you make the playoffs. It's not a lottery pick. It's a mid pick. So now you're going to trade basically 2 mid-round picks for an established Bradley Beal. Excuse me, I'd make that trade in a heartbeat. Sorry, I got the hiccups. Yeah, dude. Just think about that. Now, people would be like, Nick, there's no way Washington would make that deal. They're going to want more. Okay. But how much longer you think you have with Bradley Beal before he's gonna pull a Deshaun Watson and say, "Look, I don't want to be here anymore"? Like when? I was looking at the Kings, like a Buddy Hield. A Buddy Hield would make sense if the Kings were willing to sell. I'd bring in a Buddy Hield because Bradley Beal, I think of the teams I mentioned, because Detroit, obviously, they suck. Okay, they're so bad that basically you're just bringing in guys just to play and get their feet wet for next year is basically what's happening, and try and trade Blake Griffin any way you can. You know what I'm saying? So you got that, and then you know Cleveland, they're a young team outside of Andre and maybe a JaVale McGee. Who you really trying to trade on that team? Orlando, I think Vucevic is your best. Nikolai Vucevic is is your best trading piece, but the Knicks don't need another four. And then there's the Atlanta Hawks. And I mean, I'll throw them in there, but they're another team. They're kind of young and up and coming. Is there a shooter there? So I think if when I'm looking at some of these teams, the bottom 10 teams of the league, I think a guy like a Buddy Hield would be on there. Maybe Minnesota. People are talking about like, what's Minnesota going to do with Cat? Man, I don't know. Like, I would even go out on a limb. I would go out on a limb and maybe even engage to see what's up with D'Angelo Russell. I know he's out and he's hurt, but when he comes back, if he plays well, you could play him at the 2. They need a shooter. They need that I'm going to take over shooter. The Knicks don't have that. Like, you would think Julius Randle is it, but to be honest with you, I don't like the ball in Julius Randle's hands sometime in clutch, because there's a lot of times where, well, first off, he's not the deadliest shooter like a Beal or a Buddy Hield or anything like that. But like, I don't know. I don't like him in that role. I like what he's doing with the Knicks. I love what they've done to what he's done this season. But I don't see, like, if I'm coming up the court and Julius Randle's handling the ball, I would be shy if he took a 3. Now, if he makes it, great. But I'm gonna let you know that there's a good 7 out of 10 chance that 3's not going in. That's all I'm saying. And unless the Bulls fall off the face of the earth, Zach LaVine, I was mentioning Zach LaVine, but they're not going to trade him, not when the Bulls are in 9th place in the East, and literally they're only a half game. They're a game back from 4th. They're a half game back from 5th. That's how crowded the East is. That's how crowded the East is. I'm just now realizing that I'm just sitting there talking now for an hour and 15 minutes. Crazy, right? I still got about 45 or so minutes to go. We're going to keep going. I know there was talks about, like, people were saying, oh man, maybe the Lakers could go for a guy like Blake Griffin. Maybe they could. Maybe they could. You never know. There's nothing wrong with having a little depth. And I don't think that the asking price on the Blake Griffin would be so high. I just think the Detroit Pistons are just trying to get rid of him and his contract. Like that trade that they made, that Blake Griffin trade, with the Clippers, maybe seemed great at the time, but man, Blake can't wait to get out. Like when Derrick Rose went there, he was like, well, I ain't got time for this. And when ended up in New York. So we'll see. I know the Raptors are going to be without Pascal Siakam. And as a matter of fact, there have been talks that because Fred VanVleet has been playing so well for the Raptors, there's talks about Kyle Lowry being on the trade block. But I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I would feel as a Knicks fan. Would you want to bring in a Kyle Lowry? I don't know. Yeah, we need a shooter, but is Kyle Lowry the guy we really want? I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure. But I think people are like, oh, I know why, because a lot of people were trying to hate on basketball, because did you see that play last like a few days ago where the Denver Nuggets needed 2 to tie, 3-on-1 break, and all 3 guys ended up at the 3-point line and took a 3-point shot and they missed? Dude, it's that reason right there why I keep telling Obi Toppin to go to the flipping hole. For my fellow Knicks fans and NBA fans, if you watch Obi Toppin, watch when he sets a pick. Every time this man sets a pick, he rolls to the 3-point line. No, dude, go to the flipping hole. With all that athleticism Obi Toppin has, that dude should be averaging 6 dunks a game. But he doesn't, because this NBA nowadays, everyone wants to shoot. Dude, you can still dunk the ball and it's still 2 points. Dunk the flipping ball. Sweet mamacita. Yeah, that was crazy. 3-on-1 break. All 3 guys freaking stays at the 3-point line and they end up missing a shot. Someone cuts in, it's a tie game, you go into overtime, you take your chances. Now you look like idiots because you lost because you're trying to shoot the 3. Stupid. So stupid. So I wanted to bring that up. Obi, go to the hole. Just go to the hole. It's not that hard. Dude, remember when ESPN used to be hot with the NHL talk? Man. I remember I can remember the days when I remember the days where I had to go watch ESPN2 because ESPN2 wasn't like a regular channel like ESPN was. It was like a premium channel. So you had to have a premium box to go watch ESPN2. And I remember days when the Rangers were on TV, I would go down there and watch them. I remember when they lost to Buffalo. What year was it? I think it was like 06, 07. The year Buffalo had gone to did they go to the Stanley Cup that year? I don't think they did. But I remember they had a classic battle with the Buffalo Sabres. And it was like a minute left. We're up 3-2. And I'm like, dude, oh man, if we win this, we'll get a leg up. And the Buffalo ended up scoring, comeback winning. They won the game in overtime. They ended up winning the series in 6. But I remember when ESPN, I remember when the Stanley Cup Finals was exclusively on ESPN. Now you're barely lucky if you get Barry Melrose to go in there and talk. All ESPN talks is football. They try talking MMA, but the guys they have up there are not qualified to talk mixed martial arts. That I can tell you. Not qualified whatsoever. Man, no NHL talk. Like you at a point, you either have to watch NBC Sports Network or you have to literally watch the NHL Network to get any hockey coverage. And I don't know why, because hockey is a fun game. It's fun to watch. People are like, oh my God, hockey is so boring. No, actually, it's not. Them dudes out there getting hit on that open ice and getting shots in and everything, dude. Hockey is so much fun. It's so much fun. But I wanted to bring in some hockey talk because, first of all, I want to say big ups to Henrik Lundqvist. If you haven't been watching or been paying attention, Henrik Lundqvist, who's the former Rangers goalie who signed with the Washington Capitals, was sidelined for the season for a heart condition. Well, as of a week ago, he was on the ice practicing. So the heart condition went great. He's been on his Twitter putting up pictures, letting everybody know he's okay. And then last week he went on Twitter to show himself on the ice practicing. So that's a good sign. That's a good sign. It's a good sign. And I hope the King is okay. The Rangers did beat Boston yesterday, but man, the Boston Bruins have not had a good 2 games with New York, because last night they got smoked by Islanders 6-2, or the night before 7-2. Last night you get beat by the Rangers 6-2. So you just got beat 13-4 in a matter of 2 days. I'm pretty sure the Boston Bruins can't wait to get out of there. They're like, oh, this was not a good road trip, man. Let me get the deuce up out of here. As I mentioned earlier, I try to catch a few Blackhawks games here and there. The Blackhawks can still score. It's just defensively, Duncan Keith is old. Kirby Doc is, coming up in the game. He's still got maybe a year or so. This isn't the same defense that we've seen in the past with the same goaltending we've seen in the past. Because between Malcolm Subban and the other kid that they have, man, they give up a lot of goals. The Blackhawks, in my opinion, man, they give up a lot of goals. But they score a lot of goals too. So, and then they play Detroit later on tonight. That should be an easy win because, boy, you want to talk about one of the biggest falls from grace. Remember when we were praising the Detroit Red Wings for making the playoffs 26 years in a row, and now they're at a point where they'll be lucky to even win 26 games, let alone go to the playoffs for 26 years. Boy, that team fell off hard. But you know me, I still got my eyes on Jack Eichel. Now I know he's hurt. He's day to day with I think it's a lower body injury. Let's find out and see what's going on. But I would still try and sell the farm to bring Jack Eichel to New York. Eichel needs Eichel needs not Eichel, but the Rangers need a center. They need a center so bad. Is Kirby Doc is he a center? My fault, dude. Who am I thinking of? That the Blackhawks drafted 2 years ago when they were third? Who am I thinking of that they drafted that was the defensive man? I thought that was Kirby Doc, or am I tweaking? Aaron's watching. I know he watches hockey. I thought Kirby Doc played defense. Maybe I'm wrong. He said Doc's been out for a little while, hasn't played yet. He's a center. The goalies and Kane have carried the team, and the rookies have stepped up. Fair enough. Maybe the one game I watched, that game against Columbus when they won 6-5 in the shootout. They gave up a lot of goals. I thought they gave up a lot of soft goals. Heather is saying, am I thinking of both kids? Maybe I am. All right. Maybe I'm the dumbass. And I will admit that I am the dumbass. So that now lets me know that I will do more research on the Blackhawks. I don't know why I keep thinking. I don't know why this whole time I kept thinking that Kirby Doc was third. He was third, but I don't know why I thought he was defensive. So that's my bad. But I will watch the Blackhawks take on the Red Wings tonight. At least I'll try to. That game probably be over by flipping second quarter because Detroit's just so damn bad. What's Detroit this year? They're 6-13-3. Yeah, they're not that good. Heather says, as for the Red Wings, life wasn't easy for Mike Ilitch, their owner, once the hard salary cap came around. Yeah, you're right about that. I just feel like ever since they fired Mike Babcock, it just hasn't really worked out for them. They've just been bad. T's been struggling. Oh, hey, by the way, I was watching a little bit of the Lake Tahoe game between Vegas and the Colorado Nordiques. Dude, those jerseys the Avalanche was wearing were hot. The Quebec Nordique, the Nordique jerseys with the Avalanche colors, boy, that jersey's hot. And as I mentioned last week, I'm not a guy to wear jerseys outside of my own team, but I'll sport those. Aaron says they won the last couple of games. Yeah, dude, Nashville's bad too. That kind of shocks me a little bit about Nashville, though. A little bit. Those jerseys are hot though. Those Colorado Nordique jerseys. Those boys were hot. I still want to get one of those I still want to get one of those Rangers Liberty head jerseys. I want one of those so bad. Oh, I want one of those so bad. I was about to ask, why in the blue hell do I have Jack Eichel up here? It's a lower body injury. He's day to day. Day to day. I need him to be day to day on his way to New York. That's what I need because the Rangers need a center. We need one so bad. Oh yeah, and oh yeah, and by the way, that Artemi Panarin story. You want to talk about a joke, so let me make sure I got this straight. So Artemi Panarin apparently has been very vocal about Vladimir Putin, who hasn't. And since he's been vocal about everything that's going on in Russia, all of a sudden this brand new story coming up about how Artemi Panarin supposedly punched some 18-year-old girl in some bar, and they got into this huge scuffle and this and that. And this apparently happened like, I don't know, 6 years ago while Artemi was still in the KHL. And everyone from the KHL is like, dude, this is BS. This never happened. Like, if this would have happened, everybody would have known about it. Like, we're not the type of organization that just sweeps things under the rug and hope people don't find out. And now the KHL is coming out saying it's not true. I think not the bar owners, but somebody else came out and said that I wouldn't pay any attention to the story. It's just basic. It's just like tactics, like bogus tactics on the Russian government on Artemi Panarin because he's speaking out against Vladimir Putin. So hopefully the Rangers can get Panarin back soon. But man, Chris Kreider has really stepped up. The man scored 4 goals in the last 2 games. Had the hat trick in the loss against Philly the other day, and then had one in the win against Boston yesterday. And that's my thing with New York, dude. Shoot the flipping puck. They do that crap against Philadelphia. Do all that cross ice crap. Shoot the puck. You have a lane that's going right to the goalie. Shoot it. Making all these extra passes. Snap one right by him. So we'll see what happens with that. Matter of fact, let me pull up some of these NHL standings. The NHL standings. Claude Julien got fired in Montreal. I saw about that. The Habs. Looking at the quote unquote Central Division, it goes Panthers, Lightning, Blackhawks, 26 points, and then Carolina, who has 25. They're right behind them. And then the Blue Jackets are 4 points behind Carolina. Then you have the Capitals, who lead our division, in front of Boston, the Flyers, and the Islanders. Then in the North, you got the Leafs with the Oilers, Jets, and Canadians. And then in the West, you got the Golden Knights with the Wild, Blues, and Avalanche. So that's like the top 4 teams of each division. Let me tell you what, though. They can go ahead and keep these divisions. What's the point of getting rid of them? What's the point? There's no point. Everything makes sense geographically. Everything makes sense. Everything is fun. This year, you have to play everyone in your opponent. In your division 8 times, and you can't go into Canada because they're trying to keep the COVID down, which is fine. That's fine. But with the way everything is going, you might as well just keep them. Might as well just keep them. What's the point? And I like these divisions. I like the fact, us being in the same division as the Caps and the Bruins and Philly and I mean they're all rivals and all rivals to New York. Same division rivals. So you might as well just keep it. It's no point. How much time do I have left? Well, I'm only at an hour and 32 minutes. Hey, so um I want to talk a little baseball. I want to hold off as long as I can until Mack comes back because I wanted to talk about the White Sox. Tim Anderson has come up and said that he wants to be the best shortstop in the league, and the White Sox think that they can be the best baseball team in baseball, let alone the American League. We talked last week about the whole wins predictions that had come out recently that had the White Sox third and the Mets winning the East and the Braves fourth and all kinds of craziness. Um, oh, wait a minute. Heather says next year with the addition of Seattle, move Minnesota to our division, Columbus to the East, and Buffalo to the Canadian division due to 35% of their season ticket holders being from Canada. I don't see no problem with that. The only problem I would see with that is that you would have to move, Buffalo would have to play in Canada. Because the whole gist of doing everything all Canadian is that none of the Canadian hockey teams can come to America to play. They kept them up there because apparently Canada must have a better hold on the COVID than the United States. So they were like, look, y'all, I mean, we can play hockey, but y'all gonna have to stay up there, and then we come down here, which makes it interesting as far as the playoffs are concerned. Because if you're gonna be in the playoffs and the Canadian teams are eventually gonna have to play the American teams, does that mean that one of these teams have to play in the bubble? Are they gonna bubble it again? Like, what's the criteria? What's the standards? Like, what's the standards on that? So I agree. Like, I don't have nothing wrong with what you said, Heather. I think that's actually pretty genius in that case. But then you would have to say that the Buffalo Sabres would then have to literally play in Canada, which means now you're gonna have to find a spot for them to play in and make sure that it's ready. And if you let fans in and all this other stuff. So hopefully that we can calm this COVID stuff down so that we can open up the border again, the Canadian border, so we can go to Canada and play games. But we'll see what happens. But I think Heather, I think that's smart. I think that's smart. I really do. Somebody asked me the other, or not, as a matter of fact, one of my buddies, Shu, I saw him on a Twitter ask, who would you start a franchise with between Jerick McKinnon and Connor McDavid? No disrespect to Jerick McKinnon, who I think is one of, if not the best young players in the league, but I love me some Connor McDavid. Sabres could temporarily play in Hamilton where the Bulldogs play. All right, hey, if they're okay with that, hey. Again, I think what you're saying is genius. I think what you're saying is it makes total sense. And I like that. I forgot, I totally forgot that the Seattle Kraken are coming in next year. So, but that's, yeah. So I don't know. I think it's a smart idea. I think it's a smart idea. I really do. I like that idea. I really do. Really, really, really do. I'm just now looking at notice that the Buffalo Sabres are beneath the Rangers. Exactly why the Rangers need to make themselves a package to bring in Jack Eichel. Could you imagine that our first line could potentially be Eichel, Lafreniere, and not Panarin, because Panarin usually is on the second line. Like if you had like Kreider, Eichel, and Lafreniere on that first line in New York, we would be unstoppable. Unstoppable. But yeah, nah, dude, Connor McDavid is that's my dude. I love me some Connor McDavid. I'm a huge fan of it. I'm a huge fan of Jerick McKinnon too, but I love me some or Nathan McKinnon, excuse me, but I love me some Connor McDavid. Love me some Connor McDavid. But yeah, no, I'm actually ready for the baseball season to kick off. Like, so pitchers and catchers have been coming up. A lot of videos have been surfacing with the pitchers and catchers coming up. Um I watched some of the Yankees highlights from the BP, and Heather says she would go with Patrick Kane over the two. Yeah, Patrick Kane raw as hell. Patrick Kane decent. What is he like? What is Patrick Kane supposedly? Is he one goal behind for 400? I think he's one goal behind 400. Patrick Kane's a monster, but I'd still go with Connor McDavid over him. You could also throw Austin Matthews in that list. Austin Matthews been tearing it up since he came in the league. Yeah, 399. That's what I thought. So Patrick Kane, one behind 400. Great career, man. Great career. Great career. 3-time champ. Great career for Patrick Kane. I saw Luke Voigt take Corey Kluber deep. The Yankees rotation for me is very interesting. I've said this before that I think that the Yankee rotation is going to be feast or famine. It's either going to be all good. Okay, let me take that back. After Garrett Cole, they're trying to catch lightning in the bottle. You're bringing in Corey Kluber, who's 35, that's coming off a bad shoulder. You're bringing in Jameson Talon, who's coming in with after 2 Tommy John surgeries, but apparently is throwing gas and junk all over flipping all over spring training. Luke Voigt still got the juice. The Yankees brought back Brett Gardner. I mean, I guess that's a death move. That's a death move. Heather says Kane ousted McDavid from the playoffs last year. Had to hurt being a 5 seed, losing to a 12 seed. Yeah, that's true. The Hawks really look good in that series against Edmonton last year. They look great. As a matter of fact, they look great in the series against Edmonton, but they look severely outmatched in the very next round against Vegas. Severely outmatched against Vegas. But yeah, but the Yankees, in my opinion, are trying to catch uh, the perennial lightning in the bottle with some of the acquisitions. Plus, you got to remember Severino's coming back from Tommy John surgery. The only question I have with the Yankees is I'm still a little like, Kinsei Kinsa about uh, our bullpen. Because, okay, so obviously we got Aroldis. Obviously we got Zach Britton. We traded out of Vino. So where's the heat? Where are the gunners coming from now? Because we don't have Tommy Canley. We don't have Adam Ottavino. There's somebody else. Well, we let Jonathan Holder go. He's gone. So where's the fire coming from? You didn't trade to get Josh Hader, even though you've been trying to get him from Milwaukee for the longest. He's still up there. So where's the heat coming from? Where's the bullpen coming from? That's the only thing outside of your 8th inning guy, your 9th inning guy. We'll see. But the Yankees really trying to catch lightning in the bottle. So we'll see. We'll see with that because, again, on paper, I mean, it looks great on paper. Cole, Kluber, Talon, Montgomery, and then maybe Davy Garcia, or there's maybe another guy that they have in line and whatnot. But, the Yankees got these kids. Why not use them? That's the whole point. You got to go out there and use them. Miguel Cabrera came out. I heard this yesterday where Miguel Cabrera came out and said he wants to get 500 home runs and 3,000 hits in 2021. Dude, is there a worse contract in baseball, let alone in sports, than the one that Miguel Cabrera has? Like, if somebody came up to Detroit and was like, "Hey, man, look, I got 3 A level prospects that I'll give you for Miguel Cabrera, and we'll take 90% of the contract," I would bet that the Detroit Tigers would take that in a heartbeat. They wouldn't be like what's going on in Houston, where you get a Deshaun Watson. You're talking about, oh, I need two first round picks, 2 second round picks, and 2 defensive studs. And then the next minute you're like, well, we're not going to trade them. And then you're pretty much screwed after that. Crazy, right? But, Detroit has Miguel Cabrera, who's a complete shell of what he used to be. But I thought Detroit last year played much better than I thought. They played much better than I thought, and I think they played much better than what maybe a lot of people thought that they were going to, like the credit they were given. Because, so much focus was on Cleveland, and then obviously the White Sox came out of the woodwork, and then there was talk about the Rays, and there's talk about the Yankees and the A's and this and that, which, by the way, I have a beef with baseball because I'm upset with baseball that they went back to the old playoff format. What was wrong with the new playoff format? What was wrong with having the 3-game series and then 5, 7, and 7? Other than I understand where a lot of this is coming from, because people want to be like, you got to earn your way to get into the playoffs. Why everyone wants to get into playoff free pad, and the league's watered down. That's furthest from the truth, because I thought that when they went out and put in that new what am I thinking of? When they put in the new playoff system last year, at first I was thinking, oh man, this seems stupid. But dude, it was great. A quick 3-game series, 5 games, 7 and 7. Now they come out, you don't do a universal DH, which I still think is stupid. But because what it does is I think by adding a few more playoff spots, it adds excitement to the league. Like, if I'm not mistaken, in the NBA, I think the NBA, the teams that finish 7th through 11th play a 2-game series to figure out, or a 3-game series or something like that. Some type of round robin to figure out who's 7 and who's 8. So why not do it in baseball? It worked last year. Why not do it this year? It stops. Think about it. You had, what was it? The 8 best teams, and then you go through a series to figure out, who goes in and who stops. Because for some odd, beknownst to me reason, everyone wants to give these teams all these buys. Dude, they don't need them. The only sport that a team deserves a bye in a playoff system is in the NFL. It's never been that way in Major League Baseball. It's never been that way in basketball. It definitely never been that way in hockey. It's definitely never been that way in soccer to an extent. So why are we doing it in baseball to try and give somebody this free pass? Oh, sorry. Heather says she's calling it this year: Sox versus Yankees, ALCS; Dodgers versus Braves, NLDS. I'm with you 3/4 of the way. I think the NLCS is going to actually be Padres versus Braves and not the Dodgers. I like what San Diego has done this year. They got a lot of young, really good young talent. They really bolstered their pitching staff. They bring in Fernando, not bring him in, but they re-up with Fernando Tatis, with the huge contract extension. And I think this what happened. What San Diego did last year, going into what they did this year, in my opinion, is what the Bears should be doing. How do you get better? How can you be better? Like, what moves can we make? Like, we're on the tip here. You know, we can suck and start all over, or we can build. The Padres built. Like, they went into that series. Who did they lose to? I think it was LA, but they gave LA fits the entire series. And it was entertaining to watch. And San Diego's like, man, this was a great taste. You know, outside of the Dodgers, there's no other team in the West that's going to give us a problem. Maybe Arizona, but that's a stretch. Dude, let's go for broke. Let's compete with LA. Let's make this fun. And they did just that. I like the moves that they made. They went out and got Yu Darvish, who, oh yeah, by the way, had a Cy Young-esque year last year. Like, why not? I think the Dodgers, the Dodgers obviously are the champs and deserve all the respect in the world. I just don't know how I feel about that Trevor Bauer signing quite yet. On paper, it makes them dangerous. Chemistry wise, let me see how that works. Let me see how that works with the chemistry. But let me say it like this too. I think outside of the Central, I don't think that there's a team more exciting coming out of the AL Central than the White Sox. The Indians are kind of rebuilding. The Twins are hot too. I shouldn't lie. The Twins can hit rubber off the ball. The question is, can they pitch? That's the question I got. Can you pitch? Heather says the NL Central is going to be like the NFC West. Teams who win that division will have a worse record than the second wild card. Huge facts. When Mack comes back, we'll get into we'll talk deeper about it. But man, I agree. I agree. Oh, she meant the NFC East. I agree, dude. I don't like the Central this year. Like, yeah, St. Louis was good, but now, Cincinnati lost a lot of guys. The Cubs are kind of in rebuild mode. The Pirates flipping suck. And the Milwaukee Brewers tried to feed off their success, but in my opinion, put themselves in a hole because outside of Christian Yelich, what's exciting about the Brewers? So I agree. So outside of St. Louis, I'm not expecting too much, with the NL Central. But hey, I'll tell you this though. If there's any team in baseball that I think could surprise some people, I think it's going to be the Toronto Blue Jays. But I put them in the same category as the Minnesota Twins. They can hit they get the ball out of the orbit. The problem is, can you pitch? If you're scoring 8 runs a game, but your ERA between your starters and your bullpen is somewhere around 9, we can all do simple math. It's not really that great. So my question is, you know, can you pitch? We're gonna see. Because I think the Rays are always competitive, but they lost a lot this year. Um, they traded Blake Snell, who went to, oh yeah, by the way, the San Diego Padres, along with Yu Darvish. You see what I'm saying? Like, if everything works out, I think San Diego is gonna be so flipping good. They're gonna be so good this year. And that dogfight between them and the Dodgers in the West, I think that's gonna be a fun one to watch as the season progresses. I really do. I really, really do. Um, yeah, no, I really do. So far, what have we talked about so far today? I talked a little baseball with you guys. I talked some wrestling in the beginning. I talked the UFC fight. I talked a little basketball, some football. I said the Bears need to go for broke and come out here and you know try and see if they can get a Russell Wilson underneath their belt, but for the right price. I can say, for the right price, but I think the Bears need to make that deal. Because if the Bears make that deal, I think somehow it's going to push Green Bay to try and do something. But seeing how the way that the Green Bay Packers have been as of late, here's another team that'll beat up their own division and win. You win 5 or 6 games in your own division, and then you win 5 or 6 games against everybody else. So that puts you at 10, 11, 12 wins. But then all your glaring problems happen. Everyone's talking, oh, J.J. Watt should go to Green Bay, this and that. Okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's okay and everything. My question becomes, does he really make your pass rush that much better? What have we seen from J.J. Watt in the last 2 years that makes you say to yourself, you know what? J.J. should come over here. You can't. And I don't think Green Bay has the defensive tackles, the defensive tackle depth like what you call it has. Like a team like Tampa has. Or, some of these other teams that have really good defensive tackle depth to where their edge rushers are coming off. What you call it kind of has it. Denver kind of has it. Plus, March Madness will be coming up here soon, and I'm gonna tell you what, my eyes are on Michigan this year. Michigan came out and they beat Ohio State. They just beat Indiana. The job that Juwan Howard is doing in Michigan has been absolutely amazing. And this comes a year after. You lose Rick Beeline. He goes to Cleveland, and Rick Beeline didn't even finish out the season, let alone his contract. This fool didn't even finish out the season. The team I think that was on the bubble per se, who I think maybe in the last week or so has really strengthened their resume, was Michigan State, because Michigan State going into the game against Illinois about a few days ago, they were like 10-6 or like 10-8 or something like that on the bubble on the Fritz. But dude, you come back and you have back-to-back wins against 2 top 5 teams. Illinois, what a great job they're doing. They're the 5th best team. And then you just beat Ohio State, who just lost to Michigan, but was still the 4th best team in the country. So, as for as much as as much crap that I give the Big Ten is really showing their ass this time, because you got 3-4 teams in the top 5 alone. And 3 or 4 good teams in the top 5 alone. Not just 3 or 4 teams, but at least they're good. Illinois is good. Michigan's great. Ohio State, really good. So we'll definitely, when the brackets come out, I'm definitely going to do one, but it should be fun. It should be fun. All right, guys. Well, I got 5 more minutes left. We'll go the perennial 2 hours here. Again, don't forget to follow us on a YouTube. Go to YouTube and search in PodRiver. PodRiver. And yeah, so go on PodRiver. My fault, I'm getting distracted. Go on PodRiver, check them out, right? Check them out, or check us out on PodRiver. You'll see us. You'll see, get some Rolling Mellows Talk is another one. That one stars Steve. You find a lot of good content on there. So go to YouTube and subscribe there for us. Also follow me on Twitter, Granoso Negro 14. Looking forward to all you Twitter heads out there. Come and follow me on Twitter. I've been a very active on Twitter, over the last couple of weeks, because if you didn't see, I almost got a 24-hour ban on Facebook from something that I put in a group, in April of last year. And for some odd and unbeknownst to me reason, it just got dinged. And Facebook is, as much as I am on it and, for sports purposes and sometimes to talk a little smack here and there, you know, people getting their accounts banned for whatever reason is beyond dumb. So I just, instead of just complaining about it, I just went to Twitter. Twitter to me is hilarious. Like I could go on Facebook, steal memes, and go on to Twitter and share them on there and get more likes and retweets and all that other good stuff. Like Facebook cool, but Facebook's becoming a pain in the butt, with everything going on. So follow me on Twitter, GranoSonego14. I'm trying to think what else. What else have I missed? I think that's it. NFL, baseball, football, wrestling. Yeah, we put some wrestling on this show. The only thing that's going to piss me off about the WWE, though, is that the fact that now we have another pay-per-view before. So when it used to be before the WWE network even existed, it used to be the Road to WrestleMania package, which was the Royal Rumble, potentially the Elimination Chamber, and then WrestleMania. For some reason, we went from WrestleMania to the Elimination Chamber to now Fastlane and now WrestleMania. Why didn't you wait for the Elimination Chamber to happen like in 2 weeks? It's just too many pay-per-views. Like, think about it like this, dude. WrestleMania will be over with, and within 3 weeks, we're going to have another pay-per-view. That's stupid. It's always been stupid. Like, bro, I'm just getting over the hangover that was WrestleMania. You're going to come at me with now another pay-per-view in 2 weeks? What storyline can you even be? See, that's what's wrong with wrestling nowadays. We don't let the storylines build up. Let's go to the way back machine for a second. You think that Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man Randy Savage, when they wrestled for the WWE Championship on in WrestleMania 5, do you think that storyline just happened to pop up within 3 weeks? Hell flipping no. That storyline, if you're going to be real about it, started all the way back to WrestleMania 4. The tournament. Hogan gets eliminated by Andre. The Macho Man beats 3 people. He beat Butch Reed, the One Man Gang, and he beat somebody else before he beat the $1 Million Man to win the championship. And Hulk Hogan's in the ring, and Hulk Hogan's jumping around, and then the Mega Powers get formed. But it took almost a year when the Macho Man won the title to really build up that storyline. Look at it like this. Let's say we go into WrestleMania and let's say Edge beats Roman Reigns for the title. I don't think it's going to happen. Let's say if it did. In the WWE's mind, they're going to say, all right, in 3 weeks, we're going to come out with a pay-per-view. Bruh, the guy who just won the championship, or what I'd say, Edge who just won the championship, hasn't even gotten a week to at least celebrate from it. At least let him celebrate. Then let's build up a storyline that we can let sit and marinate for maybe a month before we come out with another pay-per-view. No, these geniuses would be like, hold on a second. Steven says, if Daniel Bryan does not win at WrestleMania, we riot. Hey, man, I like Daniel Bryan. I'm surprised Daniel Bryan's even back. I thought that once he had the baby with Brie, that it was going to be a wrap. I thought it was a wrap. Once they had Once they had the baby, I thought it was a wrap, literally. I'm like, okay, I know Daniel's got the neck injury, but now he's a dad and stuff. And I don't watch Total Bellas like that. I do watch The Miz and Mrs. though. I think that show is flipping hilarious. I think The Miz with Maurice's mom is so funny because obviously Maurice is French, and then her mom's kind of got that thick accent, but can still speak English. But like she's all over social media, like trying to like be like Maurice and stuff, and she's always clowning the Miz and everything. I think that show's flipping hilarious. As a matter of fact, I think that show to me reminds me sometimes of Georgette and myself. Cause I be doing some straight goofy ass nonsense. Like it be times when we be sitting here watching some of these Netflix movies, which by the way, shout out to Netflix putting out some pretty decent shows and movies. I remember I used to hate on Netflix. I used to be like, dude, Netflix ain't got no movies. They come out with giving me these B and C ass movies. No one's gonna watch this crap. Why am I going to pay $10 to watch a bunch of nonsense? And then Netflix for a while had the Boondocks. So that was the only real reason why I even wanted it in the first place was for the Boondocks. And then they got rid of the Boondocks and Hulu picked it up. But I will say that Netflix has really stepped their game up. Some of the just the like the Netflix made movies are amazing. Matter of fact, my cousin put me on to this show called Alice in Borderlands, which is this show where it's these three Japanese friends and this random girl get are in like this test by this video game person who's trying to make life like a test and whatnot, and has to um go through these obstacles. I made it through the first episode because I was kind of tired, and the show's in Japanese, so I have to read it. So I was like, let me wait till I get more strength. But the show's decent though. Show's decent. So you should check that out. If there was a Netflix recommendation, that would be one of them. But the reason why I even brought Netflix up in the first place was because every time we be sitting here watching movies, and sometimes it ain't even like we'll be watching a serious movie and one of the guys will do something like almost too serious to where it's funny, and I just be on this couch dying laughing. I find it hilarious. Seriously. And I think that's why I like the Miz and Maurice, because um I feel like that I'm goofy like the Miz. Like as a matter of fact, if I really wanted to, like once I'm done with the show, I'll grab my belt and just go in the front room and just act stupid, like the Miz would do, because that's funny. So I guess Fastlane's coming out in a couple weeks. So and then I guess the Miz has to defend his title against Bobby Lashley on Monday. All it is with WrestleMania, like literally 4 weeks away in Tampa. So we'll see. We'll see. All right, guys. Well, look, thank you for hanging out with me. Mack is supposed to be back next week. And then when we talk next week, we will get you prepared for Jan Blachowicz versus Israel Adesanya, which is UFC 259. We'll talk about Rosenstruck against Game tomorrow. Next week. We'll probably talk some baseball. We'll talk some NBA. We'll see what other NFL news is. If you haven't been on the Facebook page, check the Facebook page out at Mack and Black Podcast. Again, find us on YouTube on PodRiver. Find us on Spotify Find us on Spotify if you want to listen to us on Spotify. Where else? Follow me on Twitter at Gran Oso Negro 14. I think that's it. So we'll see you next week. The band will be back together next week, and we'll have ourselves a lot of fun, and we'll talk more wrestling and whatnot. So for Steve on the other side of the glass, for Mack, that's all on work detail. I'm Oso Negro saying so long, and I will see you guys next week.